So, what is WAR? WAR is a framework to get at complete value of a player, both positional players and pitchers. And we're going to take a couple videos to introduce student learners to what WAR is and how it came about. Now, this might be a good introduction. This might be a good way to think about it. If you want to value a player more, who do you think is worth more, Troy Tulowitzki or Adrian Gonzalez? Troy Tulowitzki he's an excellent player, but he's injured more often than Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian Gonzalez is very solid and plays all year. So who's worth more? Excellent but injured, or solid but never injured? How much money is Cole Hamels worth? How do we put a dollar value on Cole Hamels? And the other question a lot of people have is the value of defense versus the value of offense. Nelson Cruz is a great hitter. Andrelton Simmons is a great fielder. Who's worth more? And how do you put these two components of the game into the same metric? And then you can do some historical questions too. Who was better, Barry Bonds or Willie Mays? One metric does all of this. Wins above replacement. We've talked about runs being the currency of the game. We've talked about how runs can be converted to wins. And we've talked about wins is really what you want to measure. We've talked about average versus replacement level. And wins above replacement is this one metric to answer all these types of questions. Historical questions. Questions of different contributions of the game, base running, fielding, batting. Putting a dollar sign on the value of a player. So that's what WAR is. And we're going to try to describe how WAR works. So basically, we want to get at value. The goal of WAR is to calculate the value of the entirety of the player's contribution to winning compared to what a replacement level player would do. We calculate this in a very structured way. We measure runs, and we know runs can get to wins. And then we can ask the question, how many wins was a player worth? And we know winning is the key to the game. Now, WAR is context neutral. It doesn't take into account the situation of the game. In other words, high leverage situations, bases loaded, game on the line, game is close. That's what certain metrics like RE24 do. They measure the situation of the game and the performance in the situation of the game. WOBA is more like linear weights. When we talked about linear weights before, it's a look at the average contribution of the play. So it's not situation dependent. To the extent you want to learn more about WOBA versus RE24, Baseball Reference and Fangraphs both talk about situational metrics and context neutral metrics. And you should read up on those different metrics. But WAR is trying to be context neutral, not a measure of situational performance. Well, what's the process of getting WAR for positional players? We get runs, and we have to do the calculation to the average of the league. We do it for different categories of baseball performance: fielding, batting, base running. We try to put runs to each of these performances, each of these aspects of the game, to get a measurement of a player's value, overall total value. Now, average is different than replacement. When Thorne and Palmer first started looking at measuring wins, they did it from average. Bill James talked about how you really should be thinking about replacement. And we've spoken about how Keith Woolner developed the idea further in some of his writing about what replacement level was. Now, different analysts have debated these questions, and we've discussed that in the replacement level section of this course, and you can certainly read about that more as you go forward. But there's a difference between the average performer in the league and then the replacement level performer in the league, and it depends on how you define replacement. So, where you start is runs above average. Runs above average, and that is the starting point for any of the categories here, batting, fielding, or base running. And then you add in the difference between what average in the league is and then what the replacement level in the league is at the time. So you get average minus replacement runs and put that into this equation of runs above average, RAR. So what WAR does, it allows us to compare players from different leagues, different home parks, different run scoring environments, different eras of the game, and who play different positions. It puts all the players on the same scale. The scale it puts them on is wins. Wins above replacement.